when a man is always on your mind but never calls, this is what it means. Welcome back to my channel. Have you noticed how the man who says nothing can take up the most space in your head? Not the one who breaks up cleanly, not the one who admits he's done, the one who simply vanishes. Because silence is a psychological trap. It gives you no answer to accept, no fight to finish, no door to close. It leaves you staring at an empty chat like it's a clue, replaying every moment, rewriting every line, asking your say goodbye, so your mind keeps writing endings for him. The issue, and that's why you feel stuck. Not because you're weak, but because the story never got an ending. Only a pause. In this video, we're going to untangle that knot step by step. You can understand exactly what his silence is doing to you, why it keeps pulling you back, and how to finally walk out of it without needing one more message from him. Before we begin, if you'd like to hear more reflections on love, relationships, and the emotional lessons we learn at different stages of life, don't forget to like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And now, let's begin with the first reason. Emotional imprints and unfinished connection. #1. You still think about him because that relationship never had an ending. At this stage of life, I've learned that what keeps someone in our mind is not leftover love, but unresolved emotion. When a relationship ends without a final conversation, without a clear explanation, the mind doesn't know where to place the full stop. It goes back not to hold on to the person, but to search for the clarity it never received. The brain holds on longest to connections charged with strong emotion, like feeling chosen, feeling seen, or being left too suddenly. Silence doesn't make those memories fade, it sharpens them. When there is no ending, the mind is forced to complete the story on its own, and that is why his image keeps returning even when you're trying to move forward. I've seen many people blame themselves for not being able to let go of a past relationship, but the truth is, they are not stuck on the person. They are stuck on the unfinished feeling the relationship left behind. When you understand this, self-blame softens, and the grip begins to loosen. Only when a relationship is understood clearly can it truly come to an end. And from here we need to turn to another reason. Why sometimes, even without contact, you can still feel a subtle sense of connection that hasn't fully disappeared. #2. Do you feel that he might still be thinking about you even though the two of you are no longer in contact? I'm not someone who easily believes in vague or mystical ideas, but at this stage of life, after enough relationships have come and gone, I've learned to respect human intuition. There are people who, even when they are no longer present in our lives, leave behind a quiet kind of connection. Not because they think about us every day, but because the two of you once touched each other at a deep emotional level with age. I've also learned to look at this feeling more clearly and more calmly. A sense of connection doesn't necessarily mean he is still focused on you, and it is not a sign that he will return. Often, it is simply the residue of a relationship that once mattered, a form of emotional resonance that hasn't fully dissolved, so it continues to echo even as both of you move on into different rhythms of life. What matters most is learning to separate feeling from reality. Intuition tells us that the connection existed and left its marks. But intuition does not ask us to wait, and it does not tell us to hold on. When we confuse, "I still feel something," with, "we still belong together," we become trapped in hope that was never promised. There comes a moment when many people realize this. You don't actually need him to come back in order to feel at peace. You only need to understand why the feeling is still there, and when you listen to it long enough, honestly and without resistance, it begins to soften on its own. A sense of connection doesn't keep you stuck. It simply invites you to look inward. And from here we need to go one step deeper. When his image keeps returning, it may be reflecting something unhealed within you, rather than anything that still belongs to him. #3. You don't always think about him because of him. At this stage of life, I've come to understand that the human mind often borrows the image of another person to speak to itself. When you feel empty, when you long to be loved, or when an old unhealed wound is touched, the mind returns to a place that once felt safe, and very often the image of that man becomes a mirror, reflecting what you are missing, what you are searching for, or what still needs healing within you. This doesn't mean you still love him, and it doesn't mean he was the right person for you. It simply means there is a need inside you trying to be heard. It might be a desire for deeper connection. It might be a loneliness you never allowed yourself to name, or it might be the feeling that you were never fully chosen in that relationship. I've seen many people blame themselves for still thinking about an ex, but the truth is, they are not missing that person. There isn't. They are having a conversation with themselves through that person's image. Each time the thought returns, it is asking a very simple question. What do I need right now? And when that question is ignored for too long, it comes back louder. The moment real change begins is when you realize that he is no longer the center of the story. You are. When you start listening honestly to your own needs, his image gradually loses its weight. What is truly heard no longer needs to haunt you. And you? Have you ever noticed that when you think about him, what you're really missing isn't him, but a feeling within your share your story in the comments. ECU, and from here, we move to the final layer. The lesson this relationship came to teach you, and why it appeared at that exact moment in your life. #4. Some relationships come into our lives only to teach us a lesson. At this stage of life, I've learned that some people enter our world not to walk beside us for long, but to illuminate a blind spot within us. Sometimes it's a lesson about self-worth, realizing you gave more than was healthy for you. Sometimes it's about boundaries, learning how to love without losing yourself, and sometimes it's the hardest lesson of all, understanding that loving deeply does not mean enduring endlessly. Obsession rarely comes from love over love. More often it comes from an unresolved inner conflict. Your mind knows the relationship is over, but your heart isn't ready to accept it yet. One part of you wants to let go for the sake of peace. Another part keeps holding on, not out of hope, but out of fear of facing the emptiness that comes after. Until the lesson is recognized, the mind will continue to hold on to that man's image, like a silent teacher. Not to hurt you again, but to invite you to look back at yourself. Each time his image returns, it asks a simple question. Have you learned it yet? And if the answer is no, it will return again. True release doesn't come when the other person comes back, and it doesn't come from forcing yourself to forget. It comes when you clearly understand what the relationship was meant to teach you, and when you allow that lesson to become part of how you live. When that happens, his image no longer needs to appear, because his role has been completed. As this conversation comes to a close, I hope you can feel one thing clearly. You were never foolish, weak, or broken simply because you kept thinking about a man who never called. What you carried wasn't just his image, it was unfinished emotions, quiet needs, and lessons that needed time to reveal themselves. At this stage of life, I've learned that the people who stay in our minds are often not the ones we were meant to keep, but the ones who help us understand ourselves more deeply. Some connections don't return. They dissolve gently once their meaning is understood, and when that happens, it isn't a loss. It's a release. If there's one thing I hope you take with you, it's this. Clarity brings peace, not answers from other people. When you stop asking why he didn't call and begin listening to what this experience awakened within you, something inside slowly settles. You don't need to rush. Growth happens quietly, and you're allowed to move forward at your own pace. If this reflection resonated with you, feel free to like the video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to the channel to continue these conversations together. Sometimes, simply knowing you're not alone is already part of healing. Thanks for watching my video till the very end, and I'll see you next time.